Inspired by billionaire Mark Cuban's suggestion that perhaps people should keep more of their money in cash if they're waiting for a great opportunity, I decided to once again go looking for some of the best places to park cash. Today, I'm going to share with you my findings, some of the highest interest rates in the world where you can store your dollars, your euros, or other currencies. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. Now, I may not agree with Mark Cuban on everything. I've heard him make some comments about the offshore world that makes me think he much prefers paying big taxes. But you can't deny he has been successful. He's a billionaire, and I recently heard him say that if you're looking for a great deal, he thinks there's going to be some great deals coming out, whether it's in business, the markets. Put some money in cash if you aren't sure what to do with it. Now, cash may not mean cash in a bank account. It could be a number of different things to you or to others, whether it's a stable coin, whether it's some cash equivalent, whatever the case may be. But as I was doing some research and as I was talking to some people on the team who work with our bank connections, I stumbled across a CNBC article where they talked about how to get strong yields of, wait for it, up to 40 basis points, 0.4%. That's what the best savings accounts in the United States are yielding. And if you go to some places in Europe, elsewhere in the world, it's much, much less, of course, sometimes even less than zero. So here's the deal. If you want to keep cash, the United States generally sees more bank failures in a year than pretty much everywhere else in the world combined. I suppose there are probably some microcredit institutions in far-flung regions that don't get counted. But if you go around the world, a lot of countries have zero bank failures a year. And so, quite frankly, to me, I've always thought that the stability of the institution was much more important than the stability of the jurisdiction. Yes, the jurisdiction is important for certain legal rights and things like that. I'm not saying that's an issue in the U.S., although, listen, some people have their money taken in the U.S. too, civil forfeiture, all that kind of stuff. So the idea is, where can you move your capital overseas? I've always said offshore bank accounts. You get higher interest rates. You get diversification. You perhaps get safer banks. Where I'm from in the US, which I mentioned, you look at the top 50 safest banks in the world, 0. You go to Canada, 3 or 4. Singapore, I think 3. Germany, even some of the Australian banks are up there, right? Now, most of those banks aren't going to offer you good interest rates, but if you can find some of the stronger banks, look at the balance sheet, put some money overseas, you can dramatically make a lot more than 0 or 0.4%. And you may be able to get tax benefits either now or in the future. You might be setting up your ability to get flags. For example, you want to park US dollars in Turkey, $500,000 in a bank account. You hold it there for 3 years. They'll give you Turkish citizenship within a matter of months. Some people like that opportunity, some people don't. But you can't deny there are some legal fees, but it's pretty darn straightforward. If you're saving $500,000 and you want to do something with that money in 3 years, you can earn anywhere from 0.85 up to about 1% in some of the better, stronger, big presence banks, and you get a free citizenship. Let's look at other countries around the world. Armenia, for example. If you look at some of the digital banks, on a 1-year term, you can still get up to about 4.75%. If you hold it longer, you can get up to close to 6% on 2 or 3-year terms. Now, there's no citizenship, but you're getting a much higher interest rate. If you look at some of the more physical banks with physical branches, perhaps a little bit stronger or at least larger in terms of deposit volume, you can get about 3.15% at some of the banks in Armenia. You go next door to Georgia. We've talked about Georgia as a great place for interest rates in the past. Interest rates generally have come down. If you go to some of the smaller banks, there are some, as you've seen, like Turkish banks. There's a UAE bank that came in. There's a Russian bank. You can go to those banks and sometimes you can get higher interest rates. Now, you're going to have a challenge because, the Turkish bank, for example, might only cater to primarily Turks doing business in Georgia. Even if you're a resident, even if you're a citizen there, they might be a little bit skittish, like, why are you here? Because your interest rate's twice as high. Interest rates, who knows? But if you go to like TBC, for example, they're paying a little bit over 1%, 1.05%. You can get up to 2% at some of the other banks. So again, you've got some banks in Georgia that are traded on the London Stock Exchange, and you can double, triple, even quintuple your interest rate putting some money there. From my perspective, pretty straightforward jurisdiction, pretty safe jurisdiction. You've got to make your own determination how much money you'd be willing to put there and what you think the risks are. But I'm comfortable keeping money there, and quite frankly, being from the US, I feel a little bit more comfortable keeping money in a place like that where I don't really have as much of a presence, right, as I would in my home country. Where else can you go? Ecuador, for those who like Latin America. There is a possibility with certain bank-like deposits to even get residence at Ecuador, so that's not a bad thing to have. It's not that expensive, but you can go to regular banks, 5%, 6% interest rates. If you want a little bit more risk, or you're willing to take on a little bit more risk, 8%, even 8.5% at some of the credit unions and microfinance institutions. If you want to consider taking on foreign currency risk, obviously there are a lot of bad foreign currencies out there. You could certainly make plays where you could put money in a bank account in Europe for some of the golden visa programs. It's going to cost you a lot more, but I just got a thing from my bank in Europe. They're offering up to 1.8% on a CD in US dollars. So that money potentially, if you were willing to put money in different currencies, you could work towards golden visas in some of these countries. The numbers are often higher. It might be €1 million versus $500,000 or €250,000. But in some of these countries, you can actually put money basically in pretty straightforward interest-bearing instruments. And if you can find a unique deal like the one that I found where, hey, we're paying you 1.8%, that could be interesting. Other opportunities in Europe where they'll occasionally pay you more. Some of the deals, like in the Balkans, Serbia, Montenegro, when I was first going there, they would pay you a fortune on their local currencies, which were relatively stable with the dollar, with the euro. Not the case anymore. However, you look at a country like Azerbaijan, for example, they're paying 9% on the Azeri manat. If you go back and look at an exchange table since about 2016, you've seen it's basically been about 0.59 to the dollar. So if you want to take the risk on that it's going to continue that trend, the Armenian dram we've talked about, pretty consistent, had a little bit of a bump up in the last several months. But otherwise, you've basically done very well earning 9 or 7% interest in that foreign currency. If you can exchange in at a reasonable price, if you can exchange out at a reasonable price in terms of the FX charges, you could have done that for the last 5 years, been sitting on cash. Let's be honest, a lot of people have been sitting on cash for some time. When are the deals going to be coming out? And even then, you look at a lot of these markets now in the US that people thought were overpriced. And now you see more money coming in because everyone wants to go and live in Texas or in Florida or somewhere where they have some personal freedom. I'm all about, if you're moving to Texas, if you're moving to Florida, if you're doing something to diversify, why not diversify into another country, possibly get a residence or a citizenship, at least get the diversification, the asset protection. Now, I don't want to say privacy because there may be reporting requirements in your home country you want to keep in mind when you're opening a foreign bank account, but these are some ways where you can make a lot more money. CNBC is saying 0.4%. You can, in Ecuador, the US dollar, for example, how about 20 times that interest rate? Is there some more risk? Yeah, I think so. Do these countries have as high of deposit insurance? Some of them do have deposit insurance. In Armenia, for example, you're covered, depending on which currency you're in, between about $15,000 and $30,000. Turkey has at the lower end of that. Georgia has a very small amount, so it depends on how much cash you're saving. You could also go to markets like the UAE, for example. Interest rates aren't that much higher than 0.4%. There was a time back during the financial crisis, the government said, you know what, we'll be on the hook, right? So you've got that stability where I believe banks in the UAE all have to be publicly traded by and large. So you've got, you don't have these little rinky-dink banks. So to me, stability is somewhat in the eye of the beholder, and stability is also in the beholder is, if they have a global perspective, we'll find more stability in certain markets for at least a portion of your cash. So these are just some ideas. Now, we don't mention individual bank names here because the banks don't like it and we are in business. But those are some countries that you could check out. Other countries that have become more difficult, Cambodia, for example, you generally need to live there, have a residence permit, not really worth it for that 4 or 5% in US dollars. Interest rates around the world have been coming down, but some of these countries have kept up very well. So those are some places to look at if you're looking to get more than 0.4%, if you want to hold on some cash in the bank for the next opportunity. Those are some good places to start. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, Learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.